Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show where I read a lot of comic books, and I'll let you know what I thought about them. But first, I want to highlight Dynamic Forces real quick. Hop on over to Dynamic Forces. They got great collectibles and comics available for sale, signed books, remarked books, sketches, all that kind of stuff, right? But I do want to point out that right now, they got some really nice exclusive limited edition covers to Stray Dogs Dog Days issue number 1, including this fantastic Evil Dead 2 movie poster homage cover that I absolutely love. You can get signed copies, you can get non-signed copies. Check them all out at dynamicforces.com at the link in the description below or right up here in the video. And of course, remember to use the code Robbie at your cart. You'll save 10%. And we always start with the pick of the week, and this week's pick of the week, Saga number 55. So I was kind of forced is the wrong way to say it, but I decided to force myself to reread through Saga and read all the stuff that I missed in time to do a show over at my buddy Verno's YouTube channel, The Cerebros. So if you want to check out my thoughts on the entirety of the first half of the Saga of Saga, which is the first 54 issues, which it's been like over 3 years pretty much since it's been published. But if you want to know my thoughts on that part of Saga, I did get caught up. That show dropped this last Sunday. Go check it out over at the Cerebros. I'll leave a link in the description below. That being said, I'm now caught up on Saga just in time for it to return triumphantly for its next 54 issues, and it was a treat. It was absolutely fantastic. It was great. Saga is a book that encapsulates so much about what we love, about just storytelling. Not just genre storytelling, but like storytelling in general. It's about the human experience. It's about family. It's about the quest, the journey, becoming who you are, things like that, all of that, right? But it's also just got some of the best bits of fantasy stuff. It's got the best bits of sci-fi, and it blends it all together in a really fun book. So this book takes place 3 years after the end of the last book. There were some major crazy endings going on there. So now we're picking up the pieces. We see where our heroes are at this point in their journey. It makes sense. We're introduced to new characters. We're introduced to new concepts. And basically the story gets reignited throughout the course of this double-sized issue. And it's still, I believe, only $2.99. It's like extra size, super big. But it introduces new characters, new concepts, and it reignites the story to just fuel itself for another 54 issues. This was really well done. I was thrown right back into it. Of course, it hasn't been 3 years for me. I really just read all this stuff last week. But this was a really great issue. The artwork is always amazing. Fiona Staples, her artwork has only improved as Saga has continued on. The writing is spot on. The characterizations, they are all distinct. It is wild. It is fun. It is tragic. It is dramatic. It is exciting and exhilarating. It's action-packed. It's got nuance. It's got subtlety, but it's got a lot of directness to it, and it's crude and it's rude as well. This is everything. This is the whole human experience encapsulated into a crazy sci-fi fantasy type romp. Saga is back, issue 55. That's the pick of the week. Next up, we got Ice Cream Man, issue 28. Yeah, that is the cover. It looks like a page from a dictionary, but I really like this issue. It's about this entomologist, this guy who studies words. He's on this quest. He's left every part of his life behind in lieu of or in sacrifice to his love of words and language, and he's trying to find this wizard on a hill somewhere who's got the secret to the first word, the source of language, something like that. And the book, like everything else in Ice Cream Man, really is weird, surreal. You don't quite understand what the point may be until you get to the end. And when you get to the end, you kind of start questioning what you even think the point is. It also feels like it's building up a little bit into the overall narrative of the story, but just like a tiny bit here and there. All in all, still an excellent exploration on the power of language, the power of words, the story we tell ourselves, the story we tell others, and how that affects our reality. Really liked this issue, thought it was cool, weird, cerebral, quirky, out there. Sounds like Ice Cream Man. Issue 28 out this week. Then we got Stray Dogs, Dog Days, issue number 2. Gotta get that Trick or Treat homage cover right there. You know it. So Stray Dogs, Dog Days has been 2 extra-sized issues of a 2-issue miniseries. It's really just prequel type stuff. So these are the stories of the dogs before the events of the Stray Dogs graphic novel. So it's simple and it's light, but it's not necessarily breezy, nor is it without its complexity. There's some really great, impactful stories in here. So much told with so little. Absolutely fantastic. I loved diving back into the world of Stray Dogs. This is a nice kind of coda to the series. It tugs at the heartstrings, it tugs at the funny bone, and it tugs at your mind. Anyway, Stray Dogs, Dog Days, issue number 2 was really solid. If you like that last issue, you know where we're going, and it's pretty fun. Then we got Gunslinger Spawn, issue number 4. Talk about fun. This is my favorite issue of the series yet. I really like Brett Booth's pencils here. I think it works. The inking is great. There's a lot going on in the pages, but what we have here is Gunslinger Spawn versus the Violator. And we get to see this new iteration of the Violator and the Clown, and it's interesting, and it's just really interesting, right? Because I was so confused when I'm reading this book, but they do explain it. It has something to do with some events that happened like right after issue 300 of Spawn that I barely remembered happening, but I'm glad they explained it to me. But it was interesting. I like this new take and approach on Clown and Violator. I thought this was a really fun, big, explosive issue that just knocked it out of the park. Gunslinger Spawn, issue number 4. 1 week after I say King Spawn's becoming a must-read, Gunslinger Spawn's like, hey, yo, what about me? Anyway, really digging this book, Brett Booth, McFarlane, and company. There you go. Then we got Frontiersman, issue number 5. 5 issues in. I love this book. This book is freaking fantastic. It started off so weird. If there was anybody who read the first issue of this and were like, oh, that seems like it's just going to be about activism and environmentalism and a little too political and wanted to jump out, that is not what this series has become, right? It's basically about a hero who has come out of retirement, a superhero, right? And he's just lived the last several years just kind of like on his own, out in the woods as a hermit or whatever. He gets coerced or convinced to join into this environmental cause, to like sit in this tree to prevent it from being cut down by this giant corporation. That is all just the premise. That is not what this book is about. I thought that this book was eventually going to go into that. No, this is an exploration on superheroes, on archetypes. This is an exploration on comic book ideas and superhero tropes and things like that. And it's really interesting. This book, like in issue 2, immediately gets like crazy psychedelic, right? And then in the last issue, it just becomes this like sex fest, right? Because apparently this hero has been, you know, knocking the boots with a former villain, and then this is all about the ramifications, because while he's up there on this tree, everything's being filmed. So while they're bumping uglies, you know, while they're getting the dirty deeds done, everybody can see it, and now more bigger threats are coming after him. This book is crazy. I absolutely love it. It's a really cool superhero tale. The way it's done is that each story is its own story in an overall ongoing narrative that I just can't get enough of. There's something about this book that I thought I would just lose interest on quick, but 5 issues in, and I think it's just getting better. Better. Frontiersman, issue number 5. Check it out. We also got Girl Scouts Stone Ghost, issue number 3. I would be lying if I said that this plot of this story was completely cohesive to me as a reader. But I will say that in issue 3, a lot of it starts kind of pulling itself together. And the wild, ridiculous aspect of it really becomes even more and more appealing. And as the story starts making more sense, I start appreciating how nonsensical parts and elements of this story are. This is Jim Mahfood doing some wild, crazy, like, it's like some moments of it are like day in the life, like sad, drama, tragic type stories. Some parts of it are just wild, wonky, sci-fi, interesting concepts and wild artwork. And then some parts of it are just ridiculously funny. Love the artwork. I could just stay here and stare at the artwork. There's one page in particular. Let me show you that. Just look at that real quick. I love the artwork. It's complex. It's weird. It's cool. It's got an interesting kind of take to what it's trying to do. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, honestly, but I'm really digging it. The emotion makes sense. The plot may not, but the emotion does. It's Girl Scout Stone Ghost issue number 3. Jumping over to Marvel, we got the 10 Deaths of Wolverine. So I didn't really like the 10 Lives of Wolverine, which came out last week. This is going to be like what? Like each of them is a 5-issue series. They're going to be weekly and alternating. It's kind of like they're billing it as the House of X Powers of 10 of this newest wave, this Destiny of X era of the Krakoa era, right? I didn't really like this one either. So the first one was like Wolverine back in the past trying to save Xavier, because Omega Red is possessing people. Somehow Omega Red is time traveling and possessing people and trying to kill baby Xavier. So Wolverine's trying to stop him. That's what that was. This one is mostly focused on Moira. And it directly follows up like where we last saw Moira. Like when she loses her arm and Mystique's after her and she's out there, she's on the run. She has to take like this new identity. It starts feeling rather like action movie cliche. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like Hoxpox for sure. Like that felt like, even in the first 2 issues of each, like epic in scale, grandiose in vision. This one really doesn't, and it's trying to do this whole like phalanx Wolverine thing that we've been teasing into, but it doesn't really focus on that. It sets up a mystery. It's a mystery where you're like, what's going on? But is being confused for 2 first issues of this 10 Lives and Deaths of Wolverine, is that enough to keep us going? Because so far, it's not doing much of anything. And what it does do, like this one actually does a little bit more, especially if you're interested in like Moira. What's going on with Moira? But I don't like the direction it's going. We'll see. Verdict's still out on what this new post-Hickman wave of X-Men stuff's going to be like. But for me, so far, not looking good. Plus, did you just see the little animated Krakoa trailer thing they just released? I got it sent to me, and I thought it was like like some kind of kids cartoon. It's like a trailer for this next. Don't know what they're doing over there. Then we got Mary Jane and Black Cat Beyond. This is a one-shot. The reason why I read it is because it's written by Jed MacKay, and it's focusing on Felicia Hardy. It's a Black Cat story, albeit Mary Jane's there a little bit. It's loosely connected to, I guess, what's going on in the Spider-Man book right now. Amazing. I'm not reading that one. I'm just going to wait till Wells and JR come in and then just read that fresh, But this was okay. It was interesting. So basically, Parker Robbins, the Hood, has shown up and he finds Felicia. She's there. Peter Parker's still in a coma or something. And he's like, yo, I'm going to kill this dude unless you go find my Hood for me, right? Because his Hood got eaten by another demon at the end of that Hawkeye Freefall series, right? So this is Black Cat and Mary Jane trying to heist and steal away the Hood to bring back to the Hood. It was interesting. It was okay. It wasn't as good as Jed MacKay's typical Black Cat stuff was in the main series, but it was all right. It was decent. It was just decent. Then we got Devil's Reign, Winter Soldier #1. This is a one-shot comic that I really liked. I actually like this. Nico Leon's artwork I really thought was cool. It's got some really great, like, striking graphic, like, design and composition and just really interesting stuff. I mean, like, Kingpin's, like, monstrous in size compared to Bucky Barnes, but, it still has, like, the energy that's necessary. But this is the Winter Soldier breaking into the mayor's mansion during the events of Devil's Reign to steal the files of the heroes, right? But it actually also sets up a lot, probably, that's going to be developed and revealed in the upcoming Captain America series, because this is Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing. They did the Kang series that people seem to like. I like this, though. I thought it was cool. I felt like at times it was reverting or just kind of walking back some of the character development that's been done on Winter Soldier, on Bucky Barnes, but then by the time it gets to the end of it, I found myself actually really excited to check out this Captain America #0 because it leans into that. So if you're anticipating checking out the new Captain America stuff, you might want to look into here just to see some setup of where they may potentially go in that series, at least with one of the characters. But Devil's Reign, Winter Soldier, not essential to Devil's Reign, but an interesting lead-in to the upcoming Captain America series. Speaking of Devil's Reign, we got issue #3 out here, and I wanted to talk about them this way because do read the Winter Soldier one first before you read 3 if you're trying to read it all and in chronological order, because events in Winter Soldier are referenced in here. This book, though, just not doing it for me. It's hitting too many familiar beats from Civil War and not doing it in a very impactful way. It doesn't feel like it's got the scope that this story should have to justify an event with tie-ins and everything. It just feels like there wasn't much build-up to it. I like Zdarsky. I like Marco Cicchetto. I love what they've been doing for the most part on Daredevil, but Daredevil wasn't really lead into this. I mean, maybe a little bit with some of the Wilson Fisk stuff, but I don't know. It's just kind of dull. It's just kind of doing these things and knowing that there's only 3 issues left. Like, I don't know how big of a moment or how big of a story this is actually going to be and what kind of impact it's going to have. I don't know, but it's just not really vibing with me. Devil's Reign issue number 3 out this week. Then we got Thor issue number 21. This started selling for like 15, 20 bucks last week. Why? First appearance of the God of Hammers. I mean, everybody's claiming the last one was the cameo, so this is the first full. That being said, it was a really great issue. It was this new God of Hammers character. Newish. I guess you can't really call the God of Hammers a new character based on the origin. You get a lot of the origin explained here. There's an interesting twist at the end. There's some really big moments that are going to make people's jaw drop. Things I've seen before, but a lot of people, especially newer readers, like newer in the last like 5 to 10 years, will read some moments in here and be like, holy crap. So it's selling us on that scale. It's selling us on the weight and gravity of the story. The artwork is cool. It feels a little bit looser, but it adds to the frantic nature of the fight scenes in here. It's big. I liked it. I thought it was really cool, and I liked this setup at the end and where they are teasing us into going. Then we got The Death of Doctor Strange, issue number 5. This is the final issue of this. And didn't like it. Didn't like the ending. I have liked this book. I thought the first 2 issues were pretty cool. The very beginning of the book, Doctor Strange gets killed. The whole thing is a murder mystery. Doctor Strange has done a spell where he took a week of his life from his past and flung it into, like, break in case of emergency. So you got Doctor Strange from his earliest days trying to solve the murder of Doctor Strange. And then they kind of pull a trick, and you're like, I knew. And then they try to undo the trick immediately, but still leave it all dangling. I did not like the ending of this one at all. This whole thing, what? I don't know. I like Jed McKay, but this book, it's going somewhere, but the series itself really didn't go nowhere. It was all set up for the Strange series to come. We'll see. Then we get X-Men issue number 7. I've been really confused by this Crafton. What? Is that a Freudian slip? This Crafton Krakoa. This Captain Krakoa bit, I was so confused in the last issue where they revealed who it was. They explained how that is here, so I was like, oh, I think I just missed something. But then they're revealing stuff here. Artwork by Pepe Larraz is great. Story's okay. It's decent. But there's something about this that does feel disjointed. We're 7 issues in. I don't know the identity of this book. I don't know if... I don't know. I mean, it's got great artwork. The teams never really quite come together. You don't really get any character work. I don't know. Something's off about X-Men, but it's not, like, super bad. I don't know. Then we get Black Panther issue number 3. It's actually issue 200, so haha, fool, joke's on us. It's another double-sized issue, just literally 2 issues after another double-sized issue. Anyway, this is $5.99. It's got, like, 3 stories in it. One is a story. I've been liking this issue so far, so... basically what's going on is T'Challa's got all these sleeper agents all over the place. Someone is tracking them down and killing them. T'Challa's trying to protect them. In this one, he decides he needs to lay low. He goes to Mars. And so they have a bunch of stuff between him and Storm. And it was all right, but it didn't feel like it really progressed too much of the story forward, honestly. And then there's the middle story, and it was just kind of okay. The artwork was neat, but it didn't really do much for me. And then the last story is setting up... I don't know if we've seen this character before, but it seems like, to me, it's new. It's a new character, a new potential villain for Black Panther. So if you care about first appearances, maybe check this one out. But maybe don't take my word for it, because I haven't been reading. Didn't read all the Coates Black Panther stuff, so I don't know if this character is new in this issue or whatever, but it's connected to Killmonger. It's just all right. I think that might be the last Black Panther I check out for a minute. Let's jump over to DC. And from DC, we have Peacemaker, Disturbing the Peace, issue number 1. In fact, it's just a one-shot, so why even say issue number 1? It almost feels redundant, but this is a one-shot comic book written by Garth Ennis, with artwork by Gary Brown, Lee Lowridge there on the coloring, and I liked it. I thought it was cool. So it's Garth Ennis doing what Garth Ennis does best, and not in the more this isn't as absurd or as kooky or as funny as you would think that it could be. Because Garth Ennis has that streak, obviously, and James Gunn's is Peacemaker, that's as portrayed by John Cena in the Suicide Squad movie. In the TV show, it's a little bit silly, it's rambunctious, it's fun, it doesn't take itself seriously at all. This one's kind of taking itself a little bit more seriously. It's pretty dark. This is basically Peacemaker having a chat with a psychiatrist or something about his origins, about his past, about why he is who he is and why he does what he does. And it's kind of rather dark and depressing and not like the tone that I think a lot of people are going to be expecting from this book when they pick it up. Obviously, they're putting this out on shelves because the Peacemaker show was out. And if people like are watching this quirky, weirdly funny comedy type thing, and then they read this and they're like, this is dark and filled with death, and I just hate the human freaking race now. Anyway, I still liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. Peacemaker, disturbing the peace. If you're a Garth Ennis fan, definitely want to check that out. Throwing books, throwing comics. Then we got Superman and Robin. This is a one-shot special. This is by Peter Tomasi, Victor Bogdanovic. The artwork's all right. It's not the best work I've seen from Victor. There's a little bit of sparsity in the backgrounds. It doesn't really quite feel whole and dense as far as the artwork goes, but the story was really freaking cool. I liked it. So this takes place, I guess, before some of the recent issues of Robin and Superman, Son of Kal-El, but it's Damian and Jonathan kind of having like a coda to their adventures in the Super Sons, right? So they get to come together and have another mission that was really nice, a fun, one-shot comic book story that totally respected and understood the characters. And I really feel like Peter Tomasi's making some metatextual, slides here, some jabs at like Bendis and DC Editorial, and when they brought Bendis in and he took Superman away from Peter Tomasi and we lost the Super Sons because he aged up Jonathan. I feel like there's some metatextual commentary on that here. But Superman and Robin #1, just a one-shot special, but I really liked it. Then we get Action Comics here with issue 1039, continuing this Warworld saga. So Superman has brought the authority to Warworld to just easily, you know what, I'm taking it out. We're going to take Mongol out. We're going to free all the slaves of Warworld. We're going to do what's right. Well, they get there. Superman's older. He's losing his powers. And he gets got. He gets got pretty hardcore. So now he is a slave himself. And it's kind of got that Russell Crowe gladiator type vibe. And Superman's understanding that he's always been too reliant on his powers. He takes the blows, but he shouldn't be doing that now, right? So I really like this book. I really like the artwork. You got Riccardo Federici on the artwork. Beautiful, great stuff. It feels epic. And it feels like it's got a nice, deliberate pace, and I'm enjoying it. It's an interesting way to go with Superman. We've seen these kind of Superman stories before, but usually like in one-and-dones and things like that, and not like so epically sprawled out. I'm really digging it. Just a little bit more like Mongol action, though. We can get a little bit more of that, but a great ending, too. Action Comics 1039. Then we got Detective Comics 1050. No, not really. I'm not digging this tower story. Just not digging it at all. Like, it's an interesting idea. They're replacing Arkham Asylum with Arkham Tower. It's in the middle of the city. They are miraculously healing the traumas of all these psychotic villains, right? And they're like, what's going on there? So the Bat family, because Batman's off doing his thing, the Bat family's trying to figure out what's going on. So you got Batwoman pretending to be a doctor there. Huntress has been imprinted in there or placed in there as a what do they call them? As an inmate, right? So they're trying to focus in on the Hunter stuff here, and there's some references back to the Greg Rucka No Man's Land days, and I really like it, but just, once again, not really a lot of action, nothing really happening. The structure of the way that Mariko Tamaki is choosing to tell the story is severely underutilizing the talents of Ivan Reis. It's a waste of some really explosive artwork on a story that's just quite dull. But we do get a tease in here of the Mark Waid, Dan Morrell, World's Finest book. Felt old school. It was set in the old school days. It had a nice vibrancy to it. That was really exciting. And this House of Gotham story by Matthew Rosenberg and Blanco in the back, still pretty good. Like that. But man, I'm going to tell you what, this Dan Morrell stuff, y'all, this book's going to be awesome. I'm excited for that. Then we get Deathstroke Incorporated, issue number 5, taking the concept of Deathstroke Incorporated, which is Deathstroke being hired by this organization called Trust, as well as being partnered up with Black Canary. Black Canary's there to spy on Trust because they think something villainous and heinous is going on, and that's the case. The interesting dynamic between Deathstroke and Black Canary, that's been working for me. Different artist on here, still has some nice energy, but not quite as solid as Howard Porter stuff, but still decent enough to get the job done. And then it leads us up to the revelation of Libra, what's actually going on, what's behind the Trust organization, and then a big switch at the end to set up the next bit of the story and to even tie these plans in with Joshua Williamson, the writer's plans overall in his Infinite Frontier, Justice League Incarnate, Death of the Justice League, what is the next crisis? The Williamson crisis setup continues in Deathstroke Inc., and I'm loving that book. Williamson also continues to just write great comic books over at DC with Robin. Issue number 10, The Lazarus Tournament is over. What is the direction of this book going to be? We got a tease at the end of the last issue. Robin's flung in the past. He's got to meet his great-grandmother. Ra's al Ghul is there. But there's more to that story than just that. So I like this. It's an opportunity to explore Damian's connection to his heritage, this new character, which is his great-grandmother, the mother of Ra's al Ghul. I'm loving Robin. Even without the simple hook of the Mortal Kombat aspect, the book soars, the characterization is spot on. Robin number 10, pretty freaking solid. Then we got DC vs. Vampires, issue number 4. This is the best issue of this series yet. I really like this one. The distrust that the heroes have that anybody could be a vampire, that starts coming to a little bit more fruition in here. It wasn't 100% slam bang fantastic, but I did like it. I thought it was paced a little bit better. I thought it didn't just keep retreading over the same information. It gave us something different. It gave us something new, and it moved the story just a little bit forward. I thought it was cool. Otto Schmidt's artwork's decent. Not as good still as what I've seen from him in the past, but Rosenberg and Tynan are tying it up a little bit. Just want the story to pick up a little bit more momentum. DC vs. Vampires, issue number 4. Then we've got The Flash, issue 778. This story's got basically two things going on. First of all, it's Wally West. He's in Gem World. I love anything to do with Amethyst and Gem World. And Eclipso has taken over the Justice League Dark and a bunch of other heroes over there. And he has to team up with Opal. Like, it's the only chance that he has, right? That story was awesome, and I had a lot of fun with it. The other story is about his kids, and somebody's kidnapping potential metahuman kids, and Wally's kids get wrapped up in it. That story was all right, a little trite at times and a little overly cliche. The rest of this stuff, though, was pretty freaking exciting, and maybe the artistic difference between both of those stories, because there's different artists on each one, maybe that has something to do with why it didn't have as much of an impact. Issue number 6 of Superman 78. This is the final issue of what should have been Superman 3 if it was Brainiac and not Richard Pryor. But it's been fun. This was a nice, satisfying conclusion. I like the setup. I would like for them to actually go back to this world, deliver another series, resume this out further. I would like that. I thought it nailed the voice and the tone of those movies. It did it in an interesting way. There are some moments in the story that I don't necessarily like. I feel like it's a little cop-outy, but honestly, this was really fun. It was just really fun to get back to it. Really fun to see what if Christopher Reeve would have done a Brainiac movie, if they would have went in that direction. There's some story choices that I don't like. Aside from that, though, all in all, it was pretty solid, and I like the ending. Then we get the Batman Catwoman special. This was supposed to come out months ago. It's not necessary to your understanding of Batman Catwoman, nor is reading Batman Catwoman necessary to understanding this book. So this was going to be written by, or artwork by John Paul Leon, and then unfortunately he passed away. So this has actually become more of a tribute to JPL's work. So it does have his final work here. He did the breakdowns on a lot of it, and they brought in someone to do the finishing. Who was it? Bernard Chang. And then Mitch Gerrits comes in, Dave Stewart does the coloring. And then there's a bunch of like pinups in the back that are actually really well done, and for the most part, they're really well done, and they're actually like tributes to the work of John Paul Leon, not just necessarily just random like Batman pinups. Like they're trying to do something, you know, in tribute, whether it's kind of like aping on the style or kind of doing their own thing or playing with the characters that he's known for. So anyway, that being said, I really liked it. The basic gist of the story is this: it's Selena Kyle's life on Christmas throughout the ages. Each page is a different day from a different era. It goes in chronological order from when she's a kid all the way through to as an old woman and to her eventual death. So you get an overall look of Catwoman, the character. and I thought it was pretty solid. So Batman Catwoman special, really nice touching tribute to JPL. Then we got Human Target issue number 4, Tom King, Greg Smallwood. Man, I really like this issue. I really haven't liked... Issue 1 was alright, 2, 3 kind of bored me a little bit. Now I'm kind of getting into the vibe of it. Human Targets, he's been poisoned, he's only got 12 days to live. This is day 4. Hint, each day is going to be, you know. But he's kind of like fallen for ice from the Justice League. So what this is he's interrogating and interacting with members from the Justice League International, back from those Mateus, Giffen, Maguire days, right? So if you like those characters, it's interesting. It's done in a different way, but for some reason in this issue, it kind of actually hit me. First of all, the art's been great on all 4 issues, but in this one, the main character, the Human Target himself, actually start feeling like we're seeing some weight on what's going on, some reflection on his life, right? And then the whole sultriness of the relationship that's building between him and Ice is rather well done, I thought. So there are moments in here that didn't quite work for me. It is still overly verbose, but it's also a little bit of a day in the life of the Blue Beetle, so that was cool too. Human Target number 4, I liked it. Then we got Cowboy Bebop issue number 1 from Titan Comics. This is awkward, all right? So Cowboy Bebop, great anime. They did a live action show. It's already been canceled, but they had already decided to do a comic book series based in the live action world. And then they got Dan Waters to do it. Dan Waters and Lamar Motherin on the artwork. And I'm going to tell you this. I loved this book. It had the energy. It had the syncopation and the pacing of a Cowboy Bebop like anime episode. I freaking loved it. It's colorful. The artwork was super solid. And I read this as Dan Waters just doing a Cowboy Bebop story. I never watched the live action. I don't know if there are any differences aside from just the way that some of the characters look or whatnot. But this read as just a really great, solid Cowboy Bebop story. And I could literally hear the music in my head. It had this pace to it, very deliberately through the dialogue and through the word effects and the artwork. Like it's got this like dun 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 dun. You feel that energy come across. Dan Waters is amazing. He can write these ultra poetic and darkly inspired things in like his Sandman books like Lucifer and in books like Coffin Bound. He can do crazy cool wild stuff like Homesick Pilots. He can do really interesting subtle horror stuff with great concepts like Picture of Everything Else and Deep Roots. Or he can just write a really snappy, snazzy, jazzy Cowboy Bebop story, and that's what this was. I like that a lot. Cowboy Bebop fans, check it out, regardless of whether you like the show or not, or watch the live action, whatever. From Dynamite, we have Vampirilla, Dracula, Unholy issue number 2. So I'm trying to get into Vampirilla. Obviously still feeling a little bit lost. Priest has been writing this book for 25 issues, plus Sacred 6, that's like 6 issues, 31 issues, then into this. So it's natural that I should feel a little lost, but it doesn't leave you out in the dirt. It does kind of catch you up on some things. Basically what's happened is that Dracula's dead, but there's this one dude who is a vessel who Dracula could reincarnate in. But in order to stop this from happening, Vampirilla has to consummate a marriage with him. Just goes to show, though, that it's not always going to work. Because, for instance, he's a gay man, not really into Vampirella. Most other dudes would probably be like, sign me up. But that's not what's going on here. It's interesting. Artwork's okay. Story's pretty solid. It's definitely got me more and more intrigued to go back and read all the Priest stuff. I got the first trade. Just got to carve out the time to check it out. Then we got Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, issue number 3. I'm loving this book. This book's great. It's about this company. They got this biodome that they built somewhere, right? And there's this monster loose in there, and it's killing all their people. So they get Sheena, who's pretty much like a Tarzan, Beastmaster type character. They convince her to go into the biodome and hunt down this predator. Well, she finds out what the deal is with the predator here. Really cool concept. And the way that that story unfolds and then shows the true threat, right? Because there's more than meets the eye to this corporation and to this biodome, and maybe Sheena's been lied to, right? She ain't gonna be pleased with that. I love the artwork in this book. I absolutely do. The artwork is by Jethro Morales, story by Stephen Mooney. 3 issues in. It's the first Sheena book I've ever read, and I'm digging it. Army of Darkness, 1979, issue number 5. This is the final issue of the series, written by Rodney Barnes, most known right now for Philadelphia. This was Ash in 1979, New York, and New York's run by a bunch of different gangs that have their own weird themes. Some about baseball, some about monsters and things like that. And so it's Army of Darkness meets the Warriors. It was a satisfying conclusion to what's been a pretty fun and silly series. So Army of Darkness 79, I thought wrapped it up in the vein and in the tone that is very appropriate to it. House of Slaughter issue number 4. I don't know about this book. Like, this issue's okay. I don't mind the story, what they're telling, but the way they're telling it. In this issue, they're doing 2 stories like they have been, but now they're juxtapositioning them against each other, I think, too much. And it's too jarring going back and forth. And it's getting a little bit unclear. When you get to the end about what's going on, okay, revealing a little bit of the sinister aspects of the House of Slaughter, but ultimately still just structurally doesn't work for me. It's a flashback within a flashback within another flashback, because don't forget, this whole damn book is a flashback. I was really wanting to see this, I don't know, do a little bit more world building, right? And setting things up for when something is killing the children returns, but right now it's just not having that vibe artistically or even through the narrative. The story's kind of compelling, but all in all, it's not really doing too much, but it does have some moments to shine. There's a double-page spread with the giant monster, for instance. That was pretty dope. Dark Blood is here with issue number 6. This is the final issue for now because they kind of leave it open-ended. And a decent enough conclusion, but I do think rather clunky. The series overall has been a little clunky. Pretty much the same thing with House of Slaughter, where you're telling a story with flashbacks within flashbacks and other flashbacks, and sometimes structurally it's hard to do that, right? And Dark Blood just kind of was able to skate across through 6 issues doing it, and then they just kind of give us this average, overblown ending. Like, the ending, or the story, has a lot of emotional weight to it, and I don't feel like the ending really delivered on it. It kind of veered more into melodrama, which I don't think was the appropriate tone, and I don't think it was necessarily intentional. But Dark Blood issue number 6, a little bit disappointed in that ending. Then we got Once and Future issue number 24. This book's wild. This book is wild, and it keeps getting more and more wild. Just when you think that they have exhausted their source of mythology and folklore and legendary heroes from Britain, no. And then they go, what about this one? And you go, well, that's freaking obvious. Plus, you got new Arthur, old Arthur, Arthur versus Arthur, another Arthur. What? It's getting a bit confusing, to be honest with you. I think it's time for me to sit down and reread the book, but I can never take my eyes off the amazing line work by Dan Mora and the amazingly exciting, bombastic coloring from Tamara Bonvillain. And Once and Future issue number 24, that might be the end of the 4th arc. Now that I think about it. Yeah, that might be it. That makes sense too, if that's the end. And I like that ending. Anyway, Once and Future, there you go. So that's what I read, that's what I'm thinking, that's what I'm digging. What are you reading? What are you thinking? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and join us over at popculturephilosophers.com for podcasts and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Keep on reading. Station, pop, pop, boom!